My guest this week is without a doubt one of the biggest names in bass music, a godfather of the second generation of UK bass and bassline. He's held multiple headline tours in Australia and the UK, hit over 17 million streams in 2022, played the likes of Creamfields, Sundown, Printworks, and to be honest, has probably inspired thousands of producers in the last 5 years. It's Scott Jenkins, aka Skepsis. Afternoon, matey. How are you?
Hi, mate. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. It's brisk today. No, it's brassic. It's -4 up in here in Manchester.
Wow.
Everyone's bowling around in big parkas and hats and scarves.
Really? I thought they don't feel the cold.
Well, that's what. Yeah, that's no. It's proper hard.
Newcastle.
You do. Yeah, that's the more north you go, isn't it? Like massive coats and then walking around in shorts and socks and just be like, I don't feel it. I don't feel it. But yeah,
right.
it's
Baltic today.
It is Baltic. But then I didn't realise we were just talking about this. You've recently, well, not recently. You've been in Liverpool the last year, so just down the road. You must be feeling the cold as well, or is it different climate across? I don't even know what you call it between Manchester and Liverpool.
There must be a word for it, like the Bermuda Triangle or something. I don't know. Yeah, but it's it's definitely a lot colder than London where I was before. But then obviously on the plus side, the air feels nicer, and you know what they say about the tap water.
It's tap water up north. Like, there's two southern people. I can absolutely back it. That the tap water up north is so much nicer.
It's different, yeah.
And so much fresher. I don't know
what
goes into it.
I went to Iceland in the summer.
Yeah.
Which it was, by the way, one of the nicest places I've ever been to.
Yeah.
And was literally staying in this place called Blue Lagoon, and it was like on volcanic rubble, sort of surrounded by. And I went to reception. I was like, "Oh, can I get some bottles of water for the room, please?" And they go, "Oh no, just drink it out the tap." And literally the tap water there was actually better than the bottled water because you could literally, it was nuts.
All the minerals and stuff that are just naturally coming through it and naturally in the springs. And
the weird thing was it actually smelt a bit funny because of, I think it was like sulfur or something. Yeah,
you know that eggy smell. If you go
naturally, it was so nice. But Iceland.
Iceland's the one
Liverpool,
to go to for water. Yeah. Iceland, Liverpool, then Manchester, the three top tier qualities of water in the world.
Definitely not London, yeah.
Definitely not London. It's a bit ropey down there. And obviously, I touched on in the intro there. I said about UK bass and bassline, and obviously there'll be people listening to this podcast that know exactly who you are and have followed you for time and followed you since the start. And there'll be people that have obviously potentially never heard of you before because they're maybe not necessarily into that music. And I always want to ask people sort of like, what do they like to sort of describe themselves as or define themselves as? Because obviously as people adapt over time and their music and sound changes, like what people might have thought that you played or produced or recognized yourself as originally might not be what you actually were like call yourself now or what you say now. So how would you sort of describe the music you make now, or sort of how would you describe what you are now?
I would say right now I'm going through a transition period, and to be honest, it is quite difficult because, when you take on a new challenge, it's often quite uncomfortable, but a lot of the time, the discomfort is the only way you can achieve better growth. So, I mean, obviously people know me well for, I'd say I've got a very distinctive sound, like 4 to the floor. But I've been working on a lot of drum and bass, a lot of like garage as well. So, I mean, different tempos, but both sort of more two-steppy.
Yeah.
My next release, which might be announced by the time this goes out because it's coming out on the 16th, is actually my first drum and bass release.
Okay,
so
wicked.
That's something different, which I'm nervous and excited.
Yeah.
But I'm quite proud of the track. So, I'd say it's definitely a transitional period, but I've always played a mixture of things in my set anyway, like from bass to drum and bass, a bit of dubstep, like obviously sing-alongs as well.
Yeah.
But no matter what it is, like it's definitely bassy, high energy.
Yeah. And when you say nervous, is it because you're worried? Obviously, it's a new sound for you to sort of put out officially. Like you said, you've touched on it in your sets, and you can mix and blend it into the sort of the events that you play. But are you nervous to think sort of like, will fans go with this, or are you just nervous because you're thinking, oh shit, what will drum and bass sort of heads, like actual artists, think about this? Like, what's sort of making you feel a little bit nervous around it?
Yeah, I think both those things to some extent, and then also just the fact that from a technical aspect, producing drum and bass is a lot different to anything else. It's very hard to get it right.
Yeah, we've had a couple of people on the podcast like touch on that and say that it's sort of one of the more difficult genres to sort of
really
like crack.
Is. Like, you know, DJing it is one thing, but actually producing it is a whole nother like story.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, more excited because I feel like a lot of people that follow me, which obviously I'm grateful for, they do like that sound already. So it's not like I'm just coming out and doing something completely different. You know, then I would probably be very nervous.
Yeah.
But it would, I feel like while it's a change in tempo, it's still got a lot of my sort of signature sounds in. So I feel like I'm still staying true to myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, like, obviously, like we've touched on this on the podcast before with other people as well, saying like you can't ever be wrong. Like if you as a person want to do like a new sound or want to dabble in a new genre or anything like that, it's like, well, it's entirely up to you, really, isn't it? Like the fans aren't going to be like, oh, what's he doing that for? It's like, well, that's the same artist that you love that has got to this position. So if you want to spread out, dip your toe in new things, like try new things.
I never wanted to like I never wanted to be like pigeonholed, you know. That's why I've always played different things in my sets over the years. I'm looking forward to it, and got some different stuff coming out, like planned for next year as well. So it's just a matter of time now, really.
Nice. We'll be seeing you go back to back with some drum and bass artists soon, then probably in the new year.
Actually, it's just been announced for Warehouse Project, actually. So maybe you can come down.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's me and Turno back to back.
Wicked, who we've also had on the podcast.
Yeah, I was going to say actually that's the one I saw. And we got Turno. He's a very nice guy.
Yes, he is, mate. He's fantastic, Franco.
Yeah, so me and him are going back to back at Warehouse Project, which is like my first official back to back with like a drum and bass DJ. So I'm quite nervous for that. I will admit I'm nervous for that because his sets are mad. Like he's like double dropping, triple dropping. So I need to get down the studio and practice a bit.
I don't know if you heard the full podcast, but when we were talking on it, he just literally played a few days before at Warehouse Project. And have you've been to Mayfield Depot before, haven't you? And you've been
a couple of times.
So he was playing in Concourse, which is room 2, and it's like the one where it's sort of got the 360 stage. And people were reaching over. Because where, like you said, double dropping, triple dropping, like high energy, people were reaching over and actually cracked the booth because it's got loads of perspex glass around the outside, and like when they're reaching over and going mad, and it was it sounded.
I don't know
wild.
if you know Dale, the manager.
Yeah, of course, Dale Gordon. Yeah, I've had him on here as well. Yeah.
He was saying on Instagram like they broke the stage or something, and I didn't know what exactly that. I thought it was just like a metaphor, but
no, literally like the perspex glass that's around the outside. Like I don't think it was malicious. Like people weren't trying to do anything. They were just literally going wild, and then crack the glass. So I mean that's a big first back to back and a big first drum and bass set, mate. But absolutely, I will be down there for that. No pressure.
First one in the main room of Warehouse Project.
That would be sick.
That
would be sick. But I am going to hold you to that now, mate, for the guest list. So thank you very much.
Of course, let's do it.
I'm joking.
No, of course.
So just to take it all the way back to the start, mate. Like, so I've known you. I'm trying to think back, like from when I've known you, all the way back to Bournemouth. Really, like the first time I think I met you would have been 2013 or 2014, when you were playing at some of the Foreverland shows.
Yeah,
and
it probably would have been
2015 then.
That was when I did the first one,
Right, okay. And
even so, that's like 7 years ago.
Yeah, 7 years ago. I remember I wasn't even at the Foreverland show that you were playing at, because there was a night on that you actually came across to afterwards, which was at like Bournemouth Academy. And Bedlam. I remember, the Bedlam one, and you had your... you had like a pink football T-shirt on that had Skepsis on the Skepsis on the back, and I remember you literally standing in front of me, and I was like, I swear that's that fucking DJ that's literally just been.
Did I see you?
Yeah. I would have I literally. It was like everyone was fucked there, but I think it was literally for like the cloakroom or to get in or something, and then literally that's the reason why.
Oh wow, like, you know what? Like, no, I didn't even know that I saw you that night. Like, obviously, no disrespect.
No, it's all right. I mean, it was 7 years ago, and it was like,
so literally because my mates were going to that Bedlam, and it was the same night I had a set. Yeah. So I played the set, and then literally went straight over to Bedlam after. Yeah. That was a mad night. That was they. Who was on there? It was like Subfocus.
I think Cause and Effect and a couple of the others
No,
were
it
like
was
in room
Manu
2.
Leng, Shy
Yeah.
FX, and I think it was TC.
Mark,
the drum and
yes.
bass DJ
Yeah,
who
yeah,
did
Mark.
the closing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, wow. Yeah. So that was about 7 years ago.
About 7 years
we've
ago.
actually known each other a long time.
A long time,
So
and then
that's
bumped
a
into
chat.
each other sort of backstage at festivals and like at
Yeah,
Forbidden
the one I
Forest
remember is that first Forbidden.
Yeah,
in,
Forbidden
like,
Forest.
2018.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brucey was there as well. You were there. Salado and everyone was there as
Yeah, that
well.
was a
Like
good
Danny
one,
Howard, and that was a good event actually. But yeah, known like a little while now, and obviously like Lengoland, like we've touched on that on the podcast and stuff before. But
Yeah.
a lot of producers, a lot of an active community for sort of bass. So for anyone listening that doesn't know what that is, it's obviously a Facebook group that started off around 2012ish, was it?
No, it was that was actually 16.
2016.
Yeah.
Was it? Oh, okay, fair. And then-
April 2016. I
Right.
think
Okay.
it was,
And you were sort of one of the first. One of the first active sort of big members in it.
Yeah, so it was actually founded by a guy called John T, and then the first members were like admins. Sorry, it was like me, Bush Baby, who else? Clean Shirt, aka Josh, and then there was a couple of others as well. But yeah, obviously you've been in there from the start, right?
Yeah, like roughly near the start. Like,
I mean, the first couple of years in there were legendary.
Yeah.
We were like doing the war dubs
dub battles
competitions
and stuff like that, and the first lot of t-shirts and other bits
Yeah,
and
the
pieces,
t-shirts were flying out like in the raves. So that was a Facebook group we just founded, and then it turned out to be quite a big thing. I stepped down probably about a year later, just because I had obviously a lot of other bits going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's still active now. But yeah, no, that was a proper good like sense of community.
Yeah,
And
like
yeah,
era.
I think it did help a lot of people. It even got to the point where it got a couple of shout outs in tunes. So I know Brucey's got a bar about it, and so does K Dot. He has
Nice.
a bar about it as well.
Nice.
So yeah, I was pretty happy with that.
Healthy, man, healthy. So to take it back even further than sort of like when we sort of first met and the like the birth of Lengoland and stuff like that. What was your first sort of like memories or introduction to music or live music? Whether that was stuff like around the house, whether that was first raves you remember going to, whether that was a first embarrassing album that you bought.
Yeah. So my dad was actually a DJ, but it's not actually linked to my story. Like, he didn't tell me to do it.
Yeah.
I found my own way with it. Like, I didn't even know about it 2 years later, but he was a DJ in the 80s. But, so I'd say the first, like, probably like year 9 or 10 in school. So like 14, 15. I'd say the first sort of drum and bass tracks I heard, which was probably the first sort of electronic music style, was like the days of like The Prodigy and Pendulum, sort of around the same time. And I remember I think the first drum and bass track I remember hearing was Tarantula by Pendulum. And I just remember listening to it, and I was just thinking, this is making me feel like mad.
Yeah.
Like not angry, but like the energy is like. And then probably like a year or two later, I went into like year 10, so like GCSEs, and it was really random. This guy like come into our school, and he was offering like DJ lessons at lunchtime, like free ones that you would just go along to in the music department.
Yeah.
So me and my mate Dave, shout out Dave. He, me and him went along, and we loved it to the point where we kind of, I don't know if we sort of became the favourites, but like kind of everyone else sort of fell away, and then we were just getting sort of one-to-one lessons with this guy who was teaching us how to DJ. So I fully knew how to DJ when I was like 14, 15, which is obviously quite
early, yeah. What was he making you mix? Not making you mix, like what was he teaching you to mix? Or like what was he sort of like? Was it just like house stuff? Like quite like...
Yeah, it was quite loose, to be honest. It was probably like a bit of house. I don't know if you remember, like around like the start of the 2010s, like that kind of like electro sound was quite big, you know,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's like Calvin Harris and
Yes,
like,
yeah, absolutely.
some more like Afrojack and that, like,
Yes,
so
yeah,
stuff
yeah. I
like
remember
that.
the like the Addicted to Bass albums and
Yeah,
everything,
yeah,
and they had
that
their
Addicted to Bass, that was a big influence on
Mm-hmm.
me. I think 2009 it was the one with the grey and yellow on the front.
Yes,
Addicted to Bass, that was
Another
big.
one you mean.
Yeah, so we started doing that. And actually, at the same time, my school had just won this massive like grant from the government, and they'd like invested a load of money. They just got all these iMacs in the music department.
Yeah.
And they had Logic on them, which is the program I still use to this day. So it wasn't. I didn't even do music at GCSE, but yeah, we were learning on there, and I always remember like I always wanted to like I was always more interested. Like if they tell us to do something, I'd always kind of go one step further.
Mm-hmm.
And like my teacher was kind of saying like, "Oh, you're really interested in this, aren't you?" So like the production and the DJing started around the same time when I was in school. And so then me and my friend, we started like, so we were saving up for decks, and we started DJing at like house parties and also birthday parties for money. So obviously the house parties was more for fun, and like clout at the time.
Yeah.
And the birthday parties was actually for money, you know, because like when you're young, like £100 is quite a lot of money.
Yeah.
So, or however much it was. So we were literally doing like little kids' birthdays parties as well. And yeah, that kind of continued for a bit. Saved up for my decks. Yeah, and then obviously got to the end of school. And I was like heavily into like electronic music at this point, so like drum and bass. I was also like a big like dubstep fan at the time of like obviously Skrillex, but also like Screamer and Benga. Like I kind of liked all
of course, yeah. So what sort of year is this? If you've just finished school, you're 16. Is this like 2011ish?
So
2010.
Actually, this was probably like between 2010 2012.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember I actually had a T-shirt with a photo of Scream's face on it. It's like when you were young, you just like idolize people.
Yeah, I mean that's still probably a sick T-shirt now. Have you still got it?
Oh no, I don't. You know,
that would be good. I'm
like
sure Ollie would. I'm sure Ollie would rate it. I
know you've had him on here, haven't you?
No, I haven't had him on here on this podcast.
I
did the interview.
Was it in a cupboard or something?
No, it was in a toilet. It was in a toilet cubicle. Like 4 or 5 years ago. I don't like. I mentioned it on the last record we did with Ghoulish, but it's one of the worst. Not one of the worst things. It's one of my biggest regrets having to remove that video and take it down. Because
he had to take it down.
Yeah, so he asked me to after it had been up for 2 weeks. Well, he was happy with it, but it was getting more traction than what I think he originally anticipated. And it's like a 20-minute interview, and there's some obviously very lively content in the interview. And so it was like everyone was liking it and sharing it and commenting and being like, "Have you seen this? Have you seen this? Have you seen this?"
Yeah.
And so he was like, "Yeah, it's wicked, mate, but can we take it down now?" And I was like, "Oh fuck." Shit.
Oh, that's painful.
So yes, it's painful, but yeah, I did. Yeah, it was a really good evening. But yeah, mate, like that whole era of Scream, Benga, when they were sort of playing out like shows in the US and obviously still playing like in the UK as well, and obviously just as Magnetic Man had sort of disbanded a little bit, so Artwork wasn't in it, but it was like Scream and Benga doing like. Remember they did a free EP at Christmas one time. I can't remember what it was called, but
I remember Scream done some free Christmas stuff.
Yeah, like Xmas Day Swagger. I think it was Screamism 7 maybe, where it was like, I had
you know your stuff you do.
Yeah.
It was that was good. Yeah, no, I loved all the different styles of dubstep. Like I was really into like Circus Records as well.
Yeah, Dr. P and like
I remember I went to a Circus Records event at Coco, because obviously Coco recently reopened in Camden, but it was shut down for years. I just thought it was gone. But I went to see Circus Records there in like 2012. I think I was like very young, and that was really cool. But yeah, so I went to university when I was 18, and it was actually to study like English lit and history. So I was doing music on the side, but I wasn't at the point where I had commit to like going for it really.
Yeah.
But then obviously I was now doing a degree that I just didn't really care about, and a lot of the reason I went to uni was just because my mates were going.
Yeah, of course, that's all right, man. A lot of people do that, didn't they?
Yeah, I didn't want to miss out on the experience, and I had a good time. And then I got to uni, and I was just thinking, like, I just had this feeling inside me, and I was like, I want to DJ in clubs so bad, because, you know, I'd only just turned 18. So, like, obviously not to big myself up too much, but I had that like hunger. And like, this was when like CDs were still around more. It was like 2014.
But to
so
be
literally
fair
I
as well, if
recorded-
you'd been DJing since you were like 14 or 15 and had been doing house parties and been doing birthdays, like it's a natural progression to suddenly then be like, right, I'm 18 now, let's actually get into a club to do it. So it's not a bad thing at all. Yeah,
because I remember I was in Freshers, like in my uni club, and obviously I was having a good time, but I was looking at the DJ and I was just like, I really want to be up there instead.
Yeah.
So, so basically I recorded a mix. It was just quite like a commercial house mix. And then literally I went round to like all the promoters' office in towns and like basically made them listen to my CD.
Nice.
And then I eventually got in with one of the student promoting companies. And when I started off, I was just doing like warm-up sets of house. And I knew nothing about house at the time. So I was literally on YouTube. Like,
is this like tech house or like deep house? Deep house was
that
big Sub-Soul era. That
It was just coming out of that. Yeah. I started doing that, and like I was really enjoying it. I wasn't getting paid or anything. I was literally just doing it for experience. And then I also got like this commercial residency playing like hip hop and rap on like Mondays in some student club. Yeah. And I met like a couple of my friends there, but so I was just doing those. And then I'd say probably like second year of uni, it was end of first year, I started like SoundCloud was like massive at this time. Like it was, if you remember sort of a few years ago, SoundCloud was like huge, like it made people's careers.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I started uploading just like these bootlegs that I'd done, because around the start I just did bootlegs really, because I just, you know, it's just an easier way to kind of gain listeners, and it's just kind of easier like template to start on.
Yeah.
So I was doing these bootlegs. I was literally just uploading clips to SoundCloud, and they started getting a bit of traction. And then I started talking to 3000 Bass. So Alan, I'm sure you know.
Yeah, Alan Bennett. Yeah.
He was one of sort of the initial people that helped to like kickstart the bass scene. The modern bass scene. Like his page was massive then. I got a tune on there, which it was just a free download, but obviously I was so excited at the time.
Yeah, which one was it?
So it actually, I think it was my Rhythm and Gash bootleg, which was one of the first tracks.
One of the first big Skepsis ones. Yeah,
that was the first big one for me. Yeah. And then I'd say slowly over the next couple of years, this was like 2015, 16, started getting more bookings, like just small ones around the UK, just like sort of student promoters and stuff. And then it got to my final year of uni, and I was starting to get more regular bookings. And that was when I also signed with my manager and my agent, probably about 6 months after.
Yeah.
So I was actually considering dropping out, and I only had about half a year of my course left. But I managed to kind of push through and finish my course. And I actually got a 2-1 as well, which I was very surprised about, but happy.
Nice.
And so that kind of set me up well. When I graduated, I could sort of roll straight into music, because I just about got to the point where I could sort of make a full-time living off it.
Yeah.
And obviously I was living with my parents at the time, which helped me out as well. And then
that's a very short space of time, isn't it? If you think about it relatively, like you said there, you're going through uni, and basically from the very first day that you were in Freshers Week, where you stepped into a nightclub and were like, right, I want to be up on that deck, taking CDs round to promoters towards the, not even the fully end of uni, but the half end of like the halfway through your final year. You've been signed, we'll touch on this in a second, obviously by Jola's crew for Crucast. You've basically been in the position now where you're like, I've got enough gigs that I could survive on this, like basically from doing this. So that's quite a short space of time, like to be able to like go from first set in a nightclub to being like, wow, okay, fine, I can literally like get by on literally just all my music production and the sets. I'd say I haven't really thought about that, but so the first set I did in a club was 2014. Yeah.
The first like proper booking I got off music, you know, rather than being a resident, that was like 2015. Signed with Joe 2016. yeah, so it was probably just like 3-4 years from doing first like club residency to full time.
Yeah, that's rapid, mate. That's wicked.
Yeah. Well, I guess I wasn't really thinking about what was next. I was just like, honestly, I was just enjoying myself. Like I know it sounds like too cliche, but I was literally, I wasn't doing it for like fame or money or whatever. I was literally just making these tracks because I loved it, and then I just like kept going, and then it's kind of things slowly will get like putting together,
naturally progressing and stuff like that.
And I think like no matter, you've always just got to do it for the right reasons, and then you'll get a lot further.
Yeah. So talk to me about Crucast then, because there'll be people that obviously that have listened to this podcast and will know who Crucast are and will know Joe and will know sort of like their roster and what they represent. But there'll be some people that don't know. But how did you and Joe originally meet, and then how did you sort of get signed to Crucast?
So Joe emailed me probably start of 2016. He actually worked for a different company. I just assumed it was like a scam email, because if you just saw some random person email you like, I want to sign you, just like, oh, spam.
Yeah.
But so I rang him, and I mean, to this day, we've never signed like an official contract. It's just a verbal agreement.
Oh, really?
So
okay.
It makes things a lot easier, you know? And it also increases that sort of bond of trust as well.
Yeah.
Because we've literally, I mean, next year we will have, he will have been my manager for 7 years and my only manager. Yeah. So we've kind of been on a journey together, because after I sort of signed with him, it was about 6 months later, he basically said to me, I'm going to break off and start my own independent thing. Do you want to come? So I was like, okay, cool. So that was Crucast. And it was just me and him. That was like end of 2016. And then sort of slowly started picking up more people. And obviously, along the way, people have come, people have gone. Mm-hmm. Kind of like a football club. There's like signings in and out. Yeah. Like, I've seen quite a lot of change throughout the years. Yeah. I mean, the only sort of people still there is probably me and Darksy. Yeah. Because even like Window Kid, he didn't really start doing Crucast stuff for like a couple of years later. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, it's like, it's a record label management events kind of umbrella. Yeah. And it's like a good sense of community as well. Cause like most of the time, all the guys that do the shows probably say there's probably like 7-8 of us regular. It's nice to like spend time with them, and like we all get along quite well for the most part. So, touring can get a bit lonely sometimes. So like, say, obviously not moaning about like going to Croatia or somewhere when it's hot, but being over there with people that it makes a big difference. Like, it's sometimes if you're traveling on your own, it can be a bit like draining. Yeah,
just having a laugh with mates, isn't it? That's what it is then. Like,
it makes it feel less like a task. Like it's and even like we did an Australia tour, and all the traveling and stuff, it wasn't too bad, because where there's more people, the morale was a bit higher as well. Like, even if we were so tired or hungover, we'd just be like laughing about it. Yeah. So it's been a few years now. And obviously with Crucast, it's kind of like a joint journey, because obviously I've had my journey, and then Joe's had his journey, selling out warehouse projects and all that stuff. So it's good for him as well. He's very good business minded, which is obviously why I'm still with him. Yeah, absolutely. So, 7 years, like you said, a long time, and which is great. And like you said, it is a bit of a family vibe. Because things change every year, so it's you see a lot.
What do you think the benefit is? And you've touched on a couple of points there, but what do you think sort of the benefit is of having like a being signed to a label and having like a manager? Because there'll be some artists or DJs or producers listening that aren't in the opportunity, or that haven't had that opportunity yet, or might not realize sort of some of the perks that you might actually be like, well, actually a lot of people don't think about this, but this is alleviated, or this is made easier, or like this is actually a bit more complicated.
Yeah, I think a lot of kind of DJs, producers who are starting out, they automatically assume that you need a manager or an agent. and once you get one, you've kind of made it, you know. But the reality is, there's a lot of shit people out there, like shit managers and agents, that they're not really going to help you, but they're going to take a percentage of your wage. So obviously it's nice to have people working with you, but also the other thing to think about is, at the end of the day, Joe and Max, obviously Max is my booking agent, it feels like I work for them, but they actually work for me. So you have to make sure that you've got the right people around you.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'd say, you know, I would only think about getting one, or like, you know, a manager's a bit different, but in terms of a booking agent, I think only to the point where you can't manage things yourself anymore. You know, like you're struggling to keep up with like your diary and everything going on, and you know, you might have a day job as well, and that makes it a bit more tough. So yeah, but it does help to have a manager. Obviously, Joe and a couple of other people, they kind of help with my sort of mundane, like day-to-day tasks and
the admin type bits. Yeah, absolutely.
Because you know, all us superstar DJs, we have to keep our receipts for the tax man. So yeah, you
don't want that tax man.
Mondays is receipts days.
Nice. Get those expenses through.
Yeah,
you had how many packs of jelly beans on the train back, Scott? How many?
Yeah, I put it all on business.
Yeah.
It would be questionable to see, but yeah, I'm not going to talk about that too much. But yeah, no, it's yeah.
What I was going to say is as well, like, and feel free to be as open and honest as you want about this, but it's just as on a point you mentioned earlier, when you said you sort of got into the position where you didn't have to have a day job anymore. I think that really interests a lot of people about being when they know it's the right time to give up their day job, or sorry, not give up their day job, but when they're in the actual right position to do it. And other people, it depends on circumstances, like it depends where you live, like what your rent's like what your background's like, you already might have savings
like
up, etc. Yeah, stuff like that. So what made it the right time for you? Like, how did you know personally, like, okay, cool, you know what? I mean, what was your day job? What was your sort of day job before, if you don't mind me asking? Like, did you ever?
Well, to be honest, I've had like, you know, various sort of small jobs, but I was a student, so
so went straight
I
from
didn't really
to...
and you know, I was doing some like DJing work for like small money. So yeah, luckily it got to the point where I graduated, and I just kind of saw that I could you know, it was like a regular income that was okay. I mean, a year before that, I actually did an internship in London at like this finance company. It was actually quite a big thing, and that was like a proper 9 to 5 up in London. And it was hard. Obviously, it's very hard when you work and then you have to come home and make time to produce and stuff as well. So I kind of went through that for a period as well. So I know obviously how hard it can be, but it's been nice because like obviously I have a lot of people on my Facebook and Twitter and stuff, and you know, time to time you see someone being like, oh, you know, I've just quit my day job, which is great to see. But yeah, it's definitely tough up to that point.
Yeah. So you did manage to literally, like I said, it's very rare for people, but you got into that position where you were a student at uni, and like we said, because it happened so quickly where you were from uni, you didn't necessarily even have to sort of like have the day job after uni, and could sort of afford to like live based on like the music and the production and the tour. And,
like I obviously I had
wicked.
like small jobs before uni. Like my first job was actually in a garden centre.
Big up.
So
big up. Yeah.
And this time of year always gives me PTSD because the amount of Christmas trees that we had to sell was nuts. That was the worst time of the year.
Yeah.
But yeah, so garden centre.
And on the flip side to that, mate, like we said at the start, you've got a lot of huge accolades. Like, so what is it? Over 17 million streams in 2022 this year. Worked like, obviously you've got albums out. You've had headline shows in Australia and the UK. Like, what's been your proudest moment of your career so far that sticks out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I was really happy with obviously I know, you know, Spotify Wrapped, it is a bit of like a dick measuring contest. But to be honest, you know, and people have varying opinions on Spotify paying the artists and whatnot, you know, but I think it's nice, you know, for people to sort of showcase their sort of accolades and how far they've come, you know, that year. I think it's cool. obviously there's always the danger of, you know, you might get a bit down if you've not sort of done as well. But I feel like the best thing to do is just compare it to your former self and just try and do better than you have before. But yeah, literally, I think 2022 was like 7 or 8 mil, and this year was 17. So I knew it would be more because my track with Tier 7 Freak, that went quite viral this year. So I had an idea it was going to be more.
Yeah.
But I was really, really happy with that. And yeah, I think it's been increasing every year since. Obviously, I know Spotify's got more listeners as well, which is good.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I was. But in terms of proudest, it's a hard one. Obviously, I do feel grateful every time I do something new. Done a few quite mad gigs. I think one that always sticks out to me is when I did Coachella.
Yeah.
That.
I mean,
sometimes I just think like I actually did that. What the hell?
Yeah. So Coachella, obviously,
almost
one of the biggest US
like,
festivals, and for anyone listening that obviously doesn't, there'll be some people listening that don't know what it is, but obviously Coachella, one of the biggest US festivals every year. And so who went out there? Yourself went out there, and then
yeah. I mean, in terms of population, it's not the biggest, but it's just very like legendary. Not exactly sure why. But yeah, it was a mental experience. I actually went on my own, and I booked to stay in LA, and I didn't realize it was so far away, and I had to get like a 2-3 hour Uber, and yeah, because I literally had no other way of getting there. I hadn't planned it. I thought it was in LA.
Yeah. And how much is a 3 hour Uber, just out of interest?
I had to, well, I can't remember, and I'm glad. But I had to, you know, at that point, I just did not care. I had to get there. Yeah. And I ended up having to go to the cash point and, you know, give the Uber driver more cash because he saw how long it was, and he was like, "No, I'm not going." So I was like, "Look, just name your price. Let's go." Yeah. But yeah, Coachella, that was nuts. Obviously, like Printworks, various festivals. I'm just trying to think what else. Obviously, did a couple of big compilation CDs. Like I think it was Pure Bassline or something. That was a big thing at the time. But yeah, just always trying to like add more every year and keep it moving.
What's something that you'd like to tick off the career bucket list that you haven't yet achieved? Obviously, we've got a lot of stuff that we have named, but what's something that you want to not necessarily even achieve next year, but just like, you know, going forward, you're like, right, I want to set this up in the ether so I can sort of achieve it?
There's certain, I'd say it's more like certain artists that I would love to work with as well. And like, obviously, I think a lot of people, they don't talk about it as much because they don't want to like seem like a fanboy or something.
Yeah, but now we'll tick it off on the podcast, Scott. Come on, let's name some of them.
Speak it into existence. It's more like certain vocalists that I'd love to work with.
Okay.
So like Becky Hill, for example. Yeah. Obviously, she's basically, well, she is a pop star, like, but I do know that she loves drum and bass. So you know, there's always the chance there. I think. Another vocalist that I love is Aluna George. Yeah. I think she's so talented. So yeah, I'd love to work with her. In terms of collabs, obviously, Chase and Status. You know, got to aim big. Probably some American guys as well. And I'd there's certain venues I'd love to sort of headline myself as well.
Go on, let's name them. Let's get it into existence.
Well, I'd love to do. Obviously, I've done Printworks, and it is closing down. But I'd love to do like a Printworks show myself. You know, kind of just like.
Well, they've got that new one, the Beams. Have you seen the Beams? Which is like the new
Beams
one they've got there. It looks really good, actually.
And actually, there's a new space that's coming next year. I think it already might be open. It's called Dockyards.
I've heard the name rings a bell.
It looks mad. It looks like a war zone map. It's like it's on the Thames. It's like some like abandoned like factories. And and there's some plans there next year. So
Nice.
that's going to be fun.
Nice, wicked.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got some vocalists that you're going to be working with there. We've got some venues that we're going to be working with, and we've got some
Fingers
artists
crossed.
that you're going to be working with. So there's 10 potentially on the list there that you can
Oh my goodness.
that you can tick off. There's no timeline on it. There's no timeline on it, so it's fine for that. Like,
We'll probably speak again in like 4 years.
and hopefully could would have ticked some of them off. Hopefully would have ticked some of them off.
Exactly.
What's one piece of advice that you'd give to? Because like I said in the intro, I would say that, like you said, you are very influential in UK bass, but especially as one of the sort of the bigger names to come out right at the start in the second wave. Like we said, Legoland when it was a huge thing, and everything that's gone on from there. Like we said, Crucast, obviously now how popular that is. The likes of, like you said there, you, Darksea, Window Kid, Brucey, like Zero, like Kajama, like all of the big like bass names. What's some advice that you would give to not even necessarily bass producers, but just people that want to produce, or people that want to DJ, or people that want to get into the music industry, potentially when it is a difficult time? Like we see venues shutting down now, we see obviously cost of living crisis going up, we see like nightclubs and nights having to dissolve and stuff like that. So what advice would you personally give as someone that has been in the industry for sort of like the last 8-9 years, has been able to make a career out of it, and has been able to sort of fund themselves and be able to like expand, like you said, play Coachella, play all these festivals, play the likes of Hideout Festival? Like what would you sort of give advice would you give?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, I wouldn't be too hard on yourself, because regardless of where you are, it is, got to be real, it's a tough time at the moment, because, you know, there's many things going on that have affected the live music scene, you know, the cost of living increase, the pandemic, lots of things. Obviously, like you said, this has led to a lot of nights dissolving, a lot of clubs shutting down. It's sad. And I think to myself, like, the way that I kind of started was doing a lot of these smaller shows with these sort of independent promoters. And it's such a risk now financially to do something like that, even down to like the electricity bills in the clubs and stuff, that you just don't really get that anymore. The smaller events, which are so pivotal, they're kind of like grassroots. You know, you've got all these big companies running these huge multi-bill events. And I think where people are kind of almost going out less as well, they are more picky with what events they go to. You play a lot of UK shows, and we play you play headline shows and stuff like that as well. But festivals are a big thing in the UK and around the world, and especially now that we're sort of 2 years out of lockdown. And festivals are a big thing that people look forward to in the summer, and it's one of the big things they look forward to. You're obviously playing like the likes of like Hideout Festival next year, and a couple of other festivals. What do you think the sort of the difference is between a festival crowd and sort of like a club crowd? Honestly, I prefer playing at festivals more just because I'd say overall, you know, the weather, it probably is a bit more of a laid back vibe, to be honest, you know, because it's a long day for people as well. But yeah, I'd say obviously clubs is more like that sort of dark. The energy can obviously be more intense in a good way. But I've always loved festivals. Like I used to go to a lot of festivals when I was younger. There was like a few festivals that I kind of went to as a punter, and then obviously when you come back and play at them, that's always a mad moment. Like Reading Fest, that was the first festival I went to when I was like 17.
Me too.
Like,
Which year?
Camping festival, I'd say.
Which year?
2014.
Who was headlining that? I think I was there.
Arctic Monkeys.
Yeah. I was there.
You were there?
Yeah, I was there.
Yes. So then obviously we came back and did it 5 years later in the dance tent, which was like it's a nice full circle moment. But yeah, no, I do love a good festival in the sun.
Nice, yeah.
And I love a day set.
Getting that vitamin D, D on there, working on the tan.
Yeah.
What music would people be surprised that Skepsis is listening to or likes that you might not have ever shared before publicly?
Well, if you saw my Spotify Wrapped, as in my listener one,
yeah. I'm gonna have to ask you now. What's on it? You can be honest, or you can be like, I don't want to share it if you don't want to.
Do you know what? I actually listen to so much like UK rap. And hip hop. That's mostly, to be honest, because I hear so much like heavy dance music in the studio and the club.
Mm-hmm.
I don't actually listen to as much. I mean, to be honest, I've always found it strange when people just listen to like one genre, or like,
Me too.
It's like I've got a friend who like, he only listens to drum and bass, like nothing else. And I'm like, mate, don't you just want to like expand a bit? But like mostly UK rap. I do like a lot of like really chilled out music though, like jazz and stuff as well.
Okay.
And I find that when you listen to a wider variety of music, it helps to increase your productivity, because there's been times where I've gone through like really bad writer's blocks and have not been able to do anything. And I'd just start putting on like random radio stations in the car, like 70s or something. And it would just, it's nice to open your mind a bit. And then the other thing that I would do is I booked to stay in this like shepherd's hut. It was like this little basically caravan in the middle of the forest somewhere on Airbnb.
Yeah.
And I went away there for a few days and I turned my phone off. And it was really, really good, I felt.
Just like a mental reset, like taking away
exactly.
like a blackout on social media.
Apart from people probably thought I'd been murdered, but last location in the forest. But no, that was nice. So yeah, creativity, it comes in waves. Like, you can't always sit down and force something. Yeah,
absolutely, mate. Yeah, like you said, listening to an eclectic taste, and like you said, you can draw on bits and pieces there. Would you think you'd ever do like you were talking about vocalists and talking about having different collabs there? Would you ever collab with anyone that's on like a UK rap or drill sort of like vibe, like Skin on Skin, the different refixes that he does and stuff like that with the sort of like techno, but with the drill beats on top and with the UK rap like vocals on top? Unreal sets, like really good boiler rooms, really good energy. Is that something you could potentially see in the future?
Yeah, I think so. I make a lot of beats. Well, actually I used to more, but I make a lot of like rap and like drill beats. So I've been in touch with like rappers before. I've never had a proper song go out with one. But I made a grime beat. Well, it's actually Brucey's track called Heater, and it's got DEE on it.
Yeah.
And I produced that. Obviously my name's not on it, but so that was quite mad to hear like D double spitting on my beat. That was cool. But yeah, I definitely would be up for working with some more people.
Nice.
Love that.
Nice. Wicked, mate. Right, Scott, that's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time to jump on and chat to us today. Like, it's really interesting to obviously hear about your roots into the industry, your first sets, how you worked your way through uni, and obviously managed to get into a great position where you could come out the other side and like, right, let's hit the ground running. Let's get into shows. Let's get into signings, Crucast.
And do you know what as well? Like, I feel like obviously I've tried to kind of condense it. So a lot of it probably just sounds like, oh, well, like, how'd you do that then? Like, a lot of it. But I honestly think like, you have to get a bit of luck as well. Like, and you can actually create your own luck by sort of working smart, not just hard, but smart as well. So obviously there was times where I probably caught a lucky break as well. But yeah, you just have to kind of believe in yourself and keep your head down. Be polite as well. I think that's an important thing. Like, just have basic manners, I'd say, like, because you never, people remember stuff.
Yeah, they do actually. Like, it's a good point to sort of finish on. Is like I said, we've met each other backstage, and I've met you and stuff before. You haven't got an ego. You're not rude. You're well mannered.
Nice
no.
You too.
You like, there are a lot of people obviously that sort of like, I'm not fucking speaking to you, or like, who are you, or like, or won't speak to you, or won't give you the time of day unless they think they're going to get something out of it.
Yeah, it's mad, that, isn't it?
But you are sort of you haven't got an ego at all. Yeah, it's a good thing, and it's a good thing for people to listen to and realise.
Turns off the camera, Skepsis is a massive I've got to turn the mic off.
But yeah, it's right.
I appreciate that, bro. Thank you.
No, it's a pleasure, mate. So yeah, thank you for jumping on, mate, and it's been wicked.
We'll have to have another chat in a couple of years.
Well, not a couple of years. I'm older than you still to that warehouse project. Whenever you're doing it, I've got to come and see the Turno back-to-back Skepsis.
End of January.
End of January, is it?
I'll message you,
okay, beautiful. Thank you very much.
Big ups.